Good morning, Shirtloads of Science. Carl Kruszinski, University of Sydney, today with the fabulous Professor Carolyn Hogg.
Carolyn Hogg, yeah.
Caroline?
Yeah. Carolyn.
Carolyn. Oh,
Y-N, no E.
And good one. And you use new tech to save species. And to do this, you've developed methods to look at hormones, microbiomes, and the genetics from the whales blowing out stuff. And in those days, you had to get close to them with a 5-metre stick.
Yep. So for my PhD, I developed whale snot. So I used to be known as Dr. Snot, yes.
And then later
made my parents super proud.
And getting urine from the ice in the Antarctic?
Yep. So we worked out how to collect urine from the ice flows in the Antarctic to get stress out of the Antarctic seals. And I would love to say I collected the samples myself, but unfortunately I fell pregnant with my daughter just before I was due to go on my trip to Antarctica. So somebody else had to collect my samples for me. I just got to analyse them.
But you have been to Antarctica?
Yes, I have.
And using genetics to improve captive breeding?
Yes, so not only captive breeding, but also moving animals around and also doing restoration projects with plants.
And using bilby poo?
Yes.
Which I had no idea until I read your paper. Apparently, they were as common as rabbits in Australia, and now they're endangered?
Yeah, so they used to cover all the continents, from all the way from Western Australia through the Northern Territory and Queensland down into South Australia, and now they're only found in isolated pockets in the Pilbara, the Kimberley, some parts of the Northern Territory and southwest Queensland. And other than that, they've been wiped out because they're one of the critical weight range mammals.
What does that mean?
So these are the mammals that are between about 500 grams and 1.5 kilos that are
500 grams, 1.5
kilos.
Sort of about this size?
Yeah, and they're good fodder for foxes and cats.
Oh my God. They're too small to fight back?
Yeah, and they're not big enough to, yes, so they're perfect meals. So cats are a big problem for bilbies. So the indigenous rangers that I work with in Western Australia, they actually go out and kill the cats. And one of the things they wanted to know is bilbies they call them the Ninu, it's their totem species for them as a cultural mob, the Kurikura community. And so they were killing cats and doing cultural burning to the south of the community where they had bilbies, and they wanted to know whether or not the bilby populations were getting bigger.
Because you don't measure, you don't know.
Yeah, so they do it by track counts, but they can't tell which individual's which. So we can collect the poo, and using the genome, we were able to develop a new method. Colleagues in West Australia actually developed the method to pick up the poo and look at the genetics in the poo, and we can tell individuals apart, we can sex them. We know that one male likes to journey from the southern part of the community all the way across the desert about 50 kilometres to the north.
50?
Yep.
Wow.
And then he comes back.
That's
so he likes to share his wild oats.
Where was this, in the Great Sandy Desert?
Yeah, in the Great Sandy Desert.
Which has enough sand to cover all of Europe, Western Europe, to a depth of 3 metres.
Really? See, an interesting new fact I did not know.
It says here that as part of some of your overall goal of trying to save species, and you're doing the work of the angels or God's work, pick the euphemism, that you have been both Dr. Snot and Professor of Poo. And you've had so many different careers. So you've worked in animal behaviour?
Yeah, that's where I started my career. When I was first doing my undergraduate, I did my undergraduate marine biology in Western Australia.
Marine biology, yep, okay.
And the dolphins had been released back into the wild, and some of them had come back into captivity. And
released into the wild? Were they in a marine park or something?
They were in a marine park that shut down in Western Australia in the early 90s, and they wanted to rehabilitate them and put them back into the wild. And so there was 12 of them, and they released 12, but 3 of them just kept coming back, so they brought them back into captivity.
And that relates to animal behaviour?
Yep.
And then we're just going to keep on moving because we want to get to biodiversity, which is one of my big topics, because you cover so many different fields.
So I've done everything from animal behaviour, looking at satellite tracking of seals in the Antarctic, and working with captive breeding programs, and now working with genetics for translocations and trying to conserve biodiversity in the long term. But the common thread through all my fields is I've always worked on threatened or endangered species.
Right. So animal behaviour was the dolphins. Reproductive biology.
So that was what I did my PhD in. I used to work with North Atlantic right whales up in Canada, and a report came out from the International Whaling Commission in 2000 that said they were dying from 3 things: ship strikes, which we know how to manage, entanglements in fishing
How do we
gear.
manage?
They can put a sonar on the front of the ship, because if you think about the propellers at the back of the ship is wide in the middle and narrow at the front. So the sound from the propeller goes out and creates a cone of silence in the front of the vessel. So the whales hear the noise and they swim to the point of
quietness, which
which
they think is safety.
Which is in front of the ship.
So there's a sonar
So now they can put devices on the front of ships to produce sound, which can help the whales know where the ships are.
And you don't want to go into the full heavy metal 400 dB, but rather a blip, get out of my way. Blip.
I'm not quite sure what kind of sound they're using for it, but I know that they started using sound. No, the team that I used to work with were there.
But it led to that. And so I think they called it the right whale because it was the right whale to kill.
It was, yep.
Isn't that a terrible...
So when you kill them, they float, they hang out close to the shore. And they're big animals. They're about 60 tonnes.
Really?
Like body
the
size.
fin whale?
But they're only about 18 metres in body length, so they're shorter. They're kind of like a short, fat, dumpy cow. We used to call them the cows at the sea.
And apparently that was one good thing that the fossil fuel industry did. It saved the whales. Because in the Industrial Revolution, we needed oil for lubrication and fuel, and we were heading towards total extinction of the whales when we started getting fossil fuels out of the ground. And we'll go on to a different topic now.
Yeah. Okay. But the interesting thing about right whales, so they stopped killing right whales in about the mid-1930s.
1930s.
And they only developed the methods to look for reproductive hormones in the 60s. So when they said whales were dying from inherent reproductive failure, like that was a statement someone made at the International Whaling Commission about right whales.
But could they prove it?
Well, that's what I did my PhD in. Was
your PhD?
Yeah, so we could come and collect whale blow and see whether or not we could use whale blow to look at reproductive hormones in whales. And the reason you want to use the blow rather than their scat
is the poo.
Is when they're feeding and producing poo, they're not breeding. So
hang on, wait a sec. Say that again.
So they feed in Antarctica or they feed in the North Atlantic.
Right.
And then in the northern hemisphere, they move towards the equator, so they breed in places like Florida or California. And in Australia, they come up and they breed off the Australian coastline, but they're not feeding when they're breeding.
Because there's a big distance from Antarctica to the other cold bit, and the equator's in between.
Yeah, they don't go across the equator.
They don't cross the equator.
No. So they feed in the south and they go to the equator to breed in the warmer waters, and then they come back.
So how long do they go without feeding?
Probably anywhere between 6 to 9 months, depending on what's happening. So females will feed.
6 to 9 months?
Yeah, so females will fall pregnant in, say, Queensland. They'll swim all the way down to Antarctica, feed, swim back, give birth to a baby that drinks hundreds of litres of milk, which is really high fat content every single day, and they're not feeding themselves. So they literally are... So
in 10 days you've used up a ton of body mass?
Yeah, so they're just basically using their fat of their body to produce the milk for their offspring, and then they migrate back south.
1 tonne every 10... Well, the world record for a human not eating is 54 weeks, where they lost 2.2 kilograms of fat every week. They had vitamins and stuff.
Wow.
So I think there's Henry's law that says that gas dissolves better at low temperatures. So in the Antarctic, there's lots of oxygen in the water, lots of krill. And so they just feed like crazy. And then
they store the body fat.
So this guy who did 54 weeks without eating, that was a once and he nearly died along the way. But so whales do this all the time.
Yep, this is how they survive. And so I was very interested in what the reproductive hormones were doing in the breeding area. And because they don't poo, we had to come up with a different way.
So on one hand, you can't get the poo, the scat, and so you have to get physically close to these things? And this is before drones?
Yeah, so before drones. My PhD was in the early 2000s, so 2002 I started my PhD. And we used to go up in a 5-metre boat behind a 15, 18-metre whale.
Which outmassed you by many times.
Yes, 3 times the size of us, with a cantilevered carbon fibre pole. And I worked with the Woods Hole oceanographic team, and they were putting suction cup tags on whales to watch how they moved and swam through the water column.
So they would survive for weeks or months, the tag?
No, those tags in the old days used to only last for maybe 24 to 48 hours. So it was like small, fine-scale movement patterns they were looking at, they were developing.
So you come back and find the same whale and identify it by the tag?
No, the tags used to just fire off. So they were suction cups and they had a little current that used to run through it, and they used to release the suction and then they'd float to the surface and we'd go pick up the tag.
Because they had a little radio transmitter or something?
Yeah, so they had a GPS.
So you've got a carbon fibre pole. I'm guessing 5 metres is a big length.
Yep.
So you're going for carbon fibre because it's light and strong.
Yes.
But you're right next to this huge creature.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's in a swimming pool. The ocean can do all sorts of up and
so
down.
generally when the humpbacks come to the surface, they'll exhale whale and breathe for they'll take 5 breaths. So they come to the
really?
surface, take the first breath, so you see them. Second breath, you get up close. Third breath, you collect the snot. Fourth breath, you collect the blow, and then down they go. And then you can wait up to 20 minutes for them to come back up. They take 4 or 5 breaths, and then they can sound for, depending what species they are, they can go down for up to 2 hours if they're a sperm whale.
I'm guessing it was all safe and you never had anything hit your boat or accidentally?
No, we never got hit while we were sampling for whale blow, but yeah, I have been hit while disentangling a whale before.
Disentangling?
Yes, we had a whale in the North Atlantic that was rolled through fishing gear. So I used to work with the team that developed disentangling.
Yeah.
So I learned how to cut ropes off whales. We used to work with a lobster fisherman. I will also say that if you're ever trying to disentangle a whale, have a lobster fisherman on the boat. They can tie loops in ropes at speed.
Really?
Yeah, they're phenomenal how quickly they can work with ropes under pressure.
A friend of mine did a course in that, and they call it bending rope when he was training with the New York Harbour Authority. So with a knife, is it like a regular knife? Or is
No. So we used to have these hook knives. So you have a
knife.
hook and the blades are on the inside of the hook. So we used to have grappling hooks, three pronged grappling hooks with life blades in it. And I used to be really good at swinging a grappling hook
and throwing it
onto the back of a whale and hooking onto the rope. And then
doesn't it hurt?
You tug it. Not so much. I mean, the grappling hook's only about that big, and the whale's 60 tons. So.
But didn't the grappling hook have sharp points on it?
No, we used to hook into the rope. So you used to throw it into the rope that was entangled on the whale, and used to cut the ropes.
But did the whales sort of keep on thrashing around, or did they?
Some of them would actually calm. They could almost sense like you were trying to help them.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I've seen some pretty horrific entanglements over the years where ropes go around both pectoral flippers, and as the animal swims, they use their flippers to steer themselves, and then the rope tightens. So we had an animal where the wound was about yay deep, and it was flensing it alive. So it was between the blubber layer and the muscle layer. And
so flensing is a word used in whale.
Where we used to cut the blubber off from the muscle.
And how thick is the blubber before you get down to the skin?
It's probably about so
that
thick.
much.
Yeah, that's
so
pretty thick.
Our human skin's sort of that much.
The epidermis, the skin layer is very thin, but the blubber layer is very, very thick.
So you're talking biology. So okay, getting back to your multitudinous careers, animal behaviour, reproductive biology. So that was trying to answer that question of do the right whales...
So are they reproductively defunct? Are they still cycling? Are they still producing progesterone and testosterone? And are they, actually having their reproductive cycle?
How do you go up with it? Like in a human, the syringe can be relatively small. How do you do that with the female whales? And how do you pick a female whale?
Oh, no, you don't do it through that. We used to do it through the blow. So
you get it from the blow.
So what happens is whales have very large lungs, and they also use about 80% of their lung capacity every time they take a breath, where we only use about 20% of our lung capacity.
Sure, we just sort of rippling.
They use their almost full lung.
Wow.
And the blow comes out of the blowholes at about 400 kilometres an hour. So you've got a large volume of air coming...
400?
Yeah, through a very...
400
kilometres an hour.
And you've got a little stick reaching out 5 meters. And what's on the end of the stick?
It was a very technical scientific device. It was an embroidery ring with Coltix knee-high stockings stretched across it.
Hang on, an embroidery ring which is about...
A bamboo 5-inch embroidery ring.
Bamboo ring, right. And then?
And then Coltex knee-high stockings. Coltex, the nylon stockings.
I've never heard that word.
Women's stockings, because...
This is part of my living in the male land.
Yes.
How do you spell Coltex?
It's a brand name.
Really?
Yeah.
The things I don't know.
And so we tried cotton, like cotton swab material originally, but cotton actually, the cotton swabs had chemicals in it that cross-reacted with the chemistry for testosterone.
Really?
For the testosterone assay. And so then we wanted something inert, and so I was doing my PhD. Like, who has money when they're doing their PhD? So I just went to the supermarket and bought nylon stockings.
And the nylon would be relatively inert?
Nylon's very inert. And so then it was really easy. And then we used to just wash the blow off with... Actually, I used to mix potassium amoxicillin. So the amoxicillin that you give your kids, it comes in a powdered form. So I'd make up like an antibiotic solution to kill any of the bacteria. because we didn't want what I showed during my PhD is if you store samples incorrectly, non-invasive samples, so these are poo samples, blow samples, saliva samples.
Right.
If you store them incorrectly, the bacteria in the samples can actually cause the hormones to metabolize, and then you don't know if what you're detecting is a biological reality or an artifact of bad storage.
So the antibiotic
Just
will
kill the
not
bacteria.
directly affect the hormones, which are just plain chemicals.
Yep.
But the bacteria will go through their metabolic life if you let them, and part of that is interfering with the hormones, and
Yep.
so you have to kill the bacteria to get real accurate levels. Wow. And how big is the blowhole? Is that what you call it, a blowhole?
Yeah, so most
Is it like
blowholes
sort
about
of-
the size of my forearm,
How big?
about the length of my forearm.
Like from there to
so
there?
Yeah, it's like a size 9 shoe.
Oh, hang on. Sorry. Okay, so...
You've got to remember, a whale is so big, like its eyeball is as big as your head.
Right. So how big's the blowhole's about that big?
Yeah.
Like the size of a...
And there's
size
two.
of- What?
There's 2 blowholes.
Why was I told?
Because they're baleen whales. So baleen whales are the ones with the large baleen plates that eat the krill. They have 2 blowholes.
So they're the ones without teeth?
Yeah,
And
and,
they're
then the
that-
ones with teeth only have 1 blowhole.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, odontocetes or toothed whales have 1 blowhole, and
like the sperm
balanopterids
whale.
or baleen whales have 2 blowholes.
Now, is it true that the fin whale can more than double its weight when it feeds?
I don't know that fact, but I would say it's probably quite a reality. They're massive animals. Like we used to see them a lot in the North Atlantic, the
Wow.
fin whales.
Because I was asked this question by a kid, why are blue whales only the size they are? And I said, well, firstly, I'm not a cetologist. Is that the right word to say that I'm not?
Cetologist, yeah.
I got that
Cetaceans.
right, okay.
Yep.
And I said, well, let me have a guess. I'm kind of guessing it's maybe related to how much they can eat, but I don't know. And I went looking, and it kind of is. And they eat roughly 1 tonne of krill a day, the fin whale, out of their 60-tonne weight.
Yep.
But when they're charging forward, according to this paper, they charge forward at a big ball of krill. The lower jaw opens. Suddenly, the 60-tonne whale takes on 70 tonnes of water.
Yeah, I'd believe that. Because what happens, so they've got these pleats,
The pleats on
the
their
ventral
tummy.
pleats, yeah, and it allows their mouth to expand to massive sizes.
And then also their
And then
belly.
they close their mouth, and then they contract their throat muscles, and they push the water through the baleen, and the krill gets caught in the baleen, and then they use the tip of their tongue to grab the krill and push it
use
down
the
their
tip of
throat.
Okay, so they've got this sort of mesh on the top of their mouth, and when the water comes in, the mesh is like that. When they force the water out of their mouth, the mesh drops like that in a trap. So that goes 60 tonnes of water minus, I think, 11 kilograms of krill, and then they use their tongue.
Yeah, and then they pull it down. And then the baleen plates at the front of the mouth of a baleen whale are shorter than the baleen plates at the back.
Hang on, say that again. The baleen plates.
It's at the front of the mouth are
Yeah.
slightly shorter than the ones at the back. And so
There's more than one set of baleen plates?
Yeah, there's hundreds of plates. They
Oh my
you know,
God.
like in a minke whale, which is one of the smallest baleen whales, their baleen plates are only about so long. But a bowhead whale, which is found in the Arctic, they have, I only know it in feet because I used to work
okay.
in North America, 12 feet long.
Wow, 3-4 metres.
Yeah, 3-4 metres.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back. So you're doing...
Sorry, we got distracted.
But you're doing reproductive biology
Yep.
on the right whales, and you had...
And humpbacks.
And we went down this pathway because I got distracted by the antibiotics. And what did you find? Okay, let's get to what you found.
So what I found,
What you found.
I was able during the course of my PhD to prove that you can use blow to look for reproductive hormones. We were able to detect it. The one thing I wasn't able to finalise before I finished my PhD was how to determine the concentration. And then I also theorised that we could use it for genetics because you're getting skin cells, but we didn't have the technology in the early 2000s to do the fine scale genetics and microbiome, which they now. So now they use it for all 3 things. But in those days, all we could do was show that the hormones were there. And then I developed the chemistry. So I used liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry to actually try find the hormones and detect it, and then just prove the concept worked.
So you could prove that the hormones existed
Yeah,
there,
and
but
so-
you couldn't get accurate concentration.
No, we couldn't get access. I think that
the technology
the
there.
technology's moved on now, and I've left the field now, so I don't keep up too closely with what's happening with the science of it all. But I do know the method is now used with about 9 or 10 different species all over the world. So
Wow.
kind of spent my PhD coming
you
up with
got-
a crazy idea where everyone told me I'd measure water quality and proved them wrong, and then gave it to the world and moved on to the next thing.
But as you're in a big sea and you're trying to manoeuvre with this 5-metre pole on your little boat next to this huge animal, the ring of the, what do you call it, an embroidery ring?
Embroidery ring.
The embroidery ring, you've got to reach 5 metres over there and get it on the top of something about this big.
You don't actually get it over the top of the blowhole
You
because
don't?
the blow comes up quite high, so you just have to like wave it through it. And it
Right.
hangs in the air. So the perfect day to collect whale snot is in a really still day when there's no wind, because the blow hangs in the air for a period of time. So as long as you are there as the whale exhales, you can kind of waft it through.
And
It's kind of like catching butterflies, but you're catching snot.
if you happen to be in the way magically and you got it all over your body, it would be sort of like a bit of a
Oh, yes.
smushy
I've been
layer.
snotted on many
You've been
times.
snotted on?
Yes. That's how I came up with the idea, because when I was doing whale rescues, I used
Yeah.
to get snotted on all the
Hang on,
time.
wait a sec, whale rescues.
So when we used to disentangle the whales, when we're cutting
Right.
them free, and they blow on you and
Yeah.
you get it on you, and then you would rub, like go to clean your sunglasses, and then it was like slimy. So there's
Really?
something in it. It's not just water. And that's where I came up with the idea.
You came up with the idea because of that,
Mm.
as a result of doing whale rescue.
Yeah.
That you could get some sort of sampling without having to come along with a 5 metre long syringe and just collect their whale
Yeah.
snot. Hence you were Dr. Snot. Wow, so did you help start that field off?
Yes, that was me. That was my
My
PhD.
God, you're famous. I've heard about you in the background. I had no idea I'd actually be able to be lucky enough
Yeah,
to be
the
talking
crazy person that came up with whale snot.
Oh, my God. Okay, so animal behaviour was one field. So
Mm-hmm.
this just shows you where science can take you. What was your training, by the way? So you started off
So I did
in baby jail, I'm guessing, or primary school or high school?
Oh, yeah. So I did primary school in South Africa when
Yeah.
I was a kid. I came over to Australia at the end of year 5. Never learnt how to do fractions because I missed a lot of school in year 5
Really?
when we immigrated.
You don't do fractions?
Oh, well, no. I had to learn in year 12 when I did calculus, but no one could believe I got all the way from year 5 to year 12 without ever actually being taught how to multiply fractions.
And how did you find calculus?
Oh, God, I hated
Yeah.
calculus.
My daughter hated fractions, but she loved calculus.
Did you? Yeah.
It's a whole different mathematics.
It is.
Okay, so
And
so
then I
you
went to
through
high school in Perth.
In Perth, in Australia.
And then I did an undergraduate at UWA.
So you went straight from school to university?
Yep, and then I did an undergraduate in marine biology and zoology.
Marine biology.
And zoology.
So you would have done physiology and...
Yeah, I did a lot of physiology and a lot of anatomy. So I went through in the generation of, we got to cut lots of
Oh, you
things
did
up in second year.
cut-downs?
Yeah.
On what sort of creatures?
Everything from invertebrates right through to vertebrates.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so that was your undergraduate.
That was my undergrad. And then
You didn't take a year off between high school and university?
during high school, I did the Duke of Edinburgh scheme and I volunteered at the local aquarium. So I learnt to drive a boat before I could drive a car. So I used to drive a boat for a PhD student
Wow.
studying dolphins during my high school holidays. University holidays, I used to drive boats for whale researchers in both Western Australia and in Queensland. And that's how I got into whales. And so then I did my honours in humpback whales.
So you did a bachelor's degree, then an honours, and
then I travelled, I left for a year and came home 8 years later. So for
you took off for a year.
Yeah, so 8 years. I lived in Hawaii. I did whales in Hawaii, whales in Alaska, whales in
Alaska?
the North Atlantic. Yep. And then I lived in the UK and worked as a receptionist at an architect's firm, answering telephones for a year.
Everybody should work in many different jobs,
Yeah.
including, I kind of recommend everybody should work for the forces of evil at least once in their life, where you find out that the people are just like you and me, but the organisation has subverted them.
Yeah, it's just a different world working in the corporate world. And then I came back to Australia to do my PhD in the early 2000s.
So you're able to jump back
Yeah,
after
so I
an
came
8-year
back.
gap?
Yep,
And
8-year
did you have
gap.
any children or anything?
Yep, so I've got an 18-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son.
And were they born during your PhD years or after?
No, just after.
Okay, so then you did your PhD.
Yep.
Where?
Here at Sydney Uni, actually.
Right. And how many years was that?
I did it in 3.5 years.
Wow, that's quick. And what was the topic?
That was reproductive hormones in free-swimming whales.
And that was where you did the whale snotty thing?
Yes.
Right. And you did that here in New South Wales or in other parts of the world?
No, I did. I started with dolphins at SeaWorld because we wanted to test that it actually worked. I used my first lot of samples with saliva and blow of dolphins, and then we collected
Oh, so you practiced on the
humpback
little guys.
whale. Yeah, and then we collected humpback whale blow samples in Queensland, and then North Atlantic right whale samples in the North Atlantic.
So your PhD took you around the world?
I cheated because I knew the people who were working on the North Atlantic right whales, so I got them to collect my samples and send them to me here.
Ah, how do they send them to you? How do you get it through customs?
I had 14 permits to do my PhD.
Really?
Yep. I'm really good at permitting and paperwork
Can
after
you do
my
paperwork?
PhD.
Oh, my God. Can you be my bestie? Now, we haven't quite got to your full careers. And in fact, what we're going to talk to you about, which is biodiversity,
Yeah,
we kind
that's
of
my
forgot
passion.
that. Can we sort of wind up here and then bring you back for a second podcast and actually talk about what we're supposed to talk?
Yes.
Okay, so before we take off, how can people follow you in your fine work? Now, you're a professor,
Yes.
right? And so you would have students?
Yeah, I do. So I run the wildlife genomics group here at Sydney Uni with
Yep.
Kathy Belov. Her and I co-lead the group together.
So you're also trained as a geneticist?
Yeah, well, I'm
Well, yep.
I'm not really a geneticist.
But
I'm
you're involved in it.
Yeah, I'm a conservation biologist who runs a genetics lab. So I've always worked in threatened species. After my kids were little, doing whale research and having small children doesn't quite pair up together because
Yeah.
you're away for long periods of time when you do whale research. And so I started working in captive breeding. And that's when I started working with genetics, because genetics is a really powerful tool, can tell us all sorts of weird and wonderful answers to amazing set of questions.
And according to what I went looking, apparently you run the largest wildlife genomics group in Australia and yet didn't study genetics at university.
No.
So it shows you that you can drift through fields and go to here and
Yeah,
there.
I guess the thing about a PhD, which I always say to my PhD students, is you don't have to, whatever you do your PhD on, and you know this, you don't have to spend the rest of your life studying that field. Your PhD just introduces you to how to become an expert in a scientific field as fast as possible, and about levels of inquiry and discovering things new and asking questions. That's what a PhD is. I always tell my students it's an apprenticeship to being a scientist, and then just follow what interests you.
Okay, so before we wind up on part one, because we didn't even get to what we were supposed to talk about, how can people follow you in your fine work? Do you have TikTok accounts or?
God, no, not TikTok. I'm on
come
LinkedIn. No, I can't. I don't do TikTok.
I'm on TikTok.
I'm on LinkedIn and
go
I am sometimes on X, on Twitter. I have to figure out the blue sky thing. Haven't done that yet. But we have a website, the Wildlife Genomics Group at Sydney.edu.
So what handles do you have in these groups?
Mine is, it's just Carolyn Hogg on LinkedIn.
Carolyn
Hogg, Hogg.
with no full stop in between.
No.
Okay, so if they look for that person,
They should
they'll
find
find
me.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wind up now and come back to what we're supposed to talk about in a little while.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Professor Hogg. Shirtloads of Science is washed, spun and aired by the University of Sydney.